Hi, I'm Michelle Crownhart. I'm the athletic director for the Phoenix Scottish Games. My email is mcrwnhrt@yahoo.com, and you can reach me there anytime.
Okay. So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been involved in the Highland Games since 1994. My first games was actually at the Phoenix Games. I was introduced to it by my daughter's 6th grade teacher, who happened to be the athletic director here at the time. Went in for parent-teacher conferences in November, and she hounded me until February to come and try it, and ever since then I've been throwing.
All right. So you were an athlete first, of course.
Yeah.
And tell me some of your memories of being an athlete. And you're still an athlete.
Actually, still competing, but yeah, it's been a blast going through all of the years. I had when I first started, my eldest daughter, threw with me, so she would be my travel partner to go to games, and just being able to go and meet people through the games and travel as much as I was able to travel, and still doing as such. I was in Germany last year. I was in Scotland in 2014, and I actually go to Chile the end of this month for a competition there.
Right on. Okay, so I have considered you to be a trailblazer as far as women in the sport. And can you tell me what have been the biggest challenges?
The hardest challenge was, and still is, the West Coast isn't so bad, but the East Coast is getting women into the games to compete. There are a lot of games that still consider it closed off for women, and even though they have world champions in their neighborhood. But and that's going to be a continual growth issue, but it's been getting better. When I first started, there were 5 women in my class, and we only had 1 class in Phoenix for women.
Wow.
And now it has grown to where I have 6 classes here now of women, and we have it spread out from novice up to the A class.
Okay. What do you consider your biggest successes as an athlete?
Probably competing in the Masters World Championships. As far as overalls, I finished 3rd in Scotland, and I finished 4th a couple of times, and this last year I finished 2nd. So I'm still chasing number 1.
Yeah, you get it. Okay, and so when did you make the switch from athlete so were you a judge or an athletic director first?
I became a judge.
Okay.
So I'm kind of from the old school thought of be an athlete, then become a judge and learn how to do that, and then become either an assistant AD to be able to understand how the layout of the fields and stuff go, and then become an athletic director so that you kind of get the overall view of what's what.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I was very fortunate to have been tested and mentored a little bit by Steve Conway when I first started out. As far as testing, he had it broke down to where you had your judge test, then you had tests to go and move up to where you could be a head judge, and then you go forward from there. So there were a lot of people along the way that really helped out get going there.
Okay. And so out of all of the different roles that you've played in the games, which have you preferred, or is there really anything in particular that you do prefer?
Actually, all of them still have their big draws. I love judging, I love throwing, and ADing. It can be stressful, but all in all, it's very rewarding when you have people come up at the end of the day and say everything ran smooth, even though you may be inside kind of all jumbled up. You know,
Yeah.
As long as you have that calm out on the outside and people enjoy themselves, you get a lot of feedback on that, and it makes you feel better and good about what you're doing.
Okay. All right. So if you, I know you get a lot of opportunity to respond to this, but what would you say to a person considering becoming an athlete?
Number 1, find a local athletic group. Reach out on Facebook, come to a game and talk to the athletes, because most of them will have no problem going and inviting you in and teaching you how to go and do the events. I started out not knowing anything about the events. So I went from one event, and literally the very first day on the field was, this is what we're throwing, this is how you do it, now it's your turn. So I don't necessarily recommend that to anybody, because that's kind of trial by fire, especially when it comes to the caber. But all in all, if you get with the local groups and start talking with the local athletes and work with them, they'll teach you and train you and help you get to where you're going. And then start out at a small game if you feel that you're going to be intimidated. A lot of games are small enough that you can go and get in and only have a few people. You don't have big crowds, so you don't have that factor to go into it.
All right, and then you mentioned Steve Conway.
Yes.
Who have been your other mentors?
Oh, goodness. Well, with Shannon Hartnett as far as an athlete, phenomenal athlete, world champion 10 years in a row. Nobody's been able to touch that since as far as consistency, which is a tribute to the number of women that have come up as far as their talent and how competitive the field has become now for the top ladies. But I would think it's just the different ADs talking to other athletes. Coming to mind, it's Mark Robinson was a big help. He was over at he works with the SHA and works a lot with Steve also, and just picking brains from people from all across the country.
Okay, all right. And so, if you were to sit down with a group of athletes, men and women, you're highly respected by both men and women athletes. And so, if you were to sit down with a group of athletes, what would you say to them? What would you suggest to them to improve, to make their part of the game better, just to become better athletes, better people within the sport?
I would say don't be scared to go and talk to the class that's above you. Take the time and push yourself. Go to a regular practice, get in the gym to go and get stronger. But don't be afraid to, if you're at the top end of your class and you're always finishing the top 1, 2, or 3, think about maybe moving up and or just working with the class above you to go, because you can pick up so many hints from the athletes that have come before and have perfected things. Just being in the class, sometimes you can learn so much that it's going to go and improve your throws.
Okay. So what's next for Michelle?
Well, the end of this month is Chile, the Masters World Championship in Tucson later this year in November, and then Ireland next year. So it's nonstop, and then a bunch of little games in between that I got to go to just because I love going and seeing the people.
So how do you personally improve your throwing?
Right now it's going to the gym a lot, because I feel if I get stronger there, it'll translate, because I've worked a lot on technique, but there's still room for me to grow. I still don't have a double spin for my weight for distance, but I've still managed to go and do okay with it with the single. But there's things that I know I need to improve on, so I figure if I get stronger and keep myself healthy, that's going to go and translate when I get on the practice field and then onto the competition field.
Okay. So any final words?
Go out and have fun. I mean, the bottom line with this is it's a game. We're here. We're entertainment for the crowd, but enjoy yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously, and really have a good time out there playing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.